All is fair in love and war, but what about expense reimbursement? When workers spend their own money on your business, those expenses are, by extension, your business's expenses. In fact, in several states, it's illegal not to reimburse employees for business expenses. To treat your employees fairly and respect the effort that they put into their work, you need to have an effective expense reimbursement policy in place. A good policy will not only repay employees for out-of-pocket expenses, but it also accurately measures how much money the company is investing in business operations. Today we'll be looking at 6 steps for creating an expense reimbursement policy for your company. I'm Raid, here with Jotform. Let's get started. First, create expense categories. Tracking expenses can get messy when you're not organized, and funneling your expenses into categories allows you to clearly see where you're overspending or underspending. There are several common expense categories that businesses consider reimbursable. There's travel, which can consist of conference registration fees, hotel rates, airfare, and general transportation costs. Entertainment is another category and can include things like gifts for clients or business lunches. Employee relocation can also be reimbursed, like moving fees, transportation, and lodging. Things like tuition for advanced academic degrees and childcare for employee children can also be reimbursed. Once you determine which categories to use, refer to the IRS rules on reimbursable expenses to ensure that you're correctly claiming both reimbursable and non-reimbursable expenses. And make sure that employees are not paying taxes on money they receive in addition to their wages. One way to do this is with an accountable plan, which doesn't include reimbursements as income on an employee's W-2 forms. It's also very important to follow the IRS's rules for accountable plans, as employees can no longer deduct unreimbursed expenses from their taxes, thanks to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. Everyone likes being asked for their thoughts on things, especially if it's something that will directly affect them. Since an expense reimbursement policy will affect everyone in your company, it's important to get employee input on what policies will benefit them. Survey your employees to find out what reimbursement rules they think would be fair and what they would like to be compensated for. Their feedback can also help you with future planning as your expense needs change. For instance, maybe you don't have the funds to partly reimburse tuition for employees who are eager to continue their industry education, but you can make it a goal to offer it in the future. Now it's time to set the rules. Rules are the crux of your expense reimbursement policy. Look at the rules of other companies in your industry to consider which variations would best fit your brand and company culture. For instance, when you're starting out, you may only be able to afford to take your clients out to eat once a month. But as you become more profitable, maybe you institute a more lenient policy that gives managers more leeway to maintain client relationships. It's a good idea to place some limits on these policies, whether it's the number of reimbursements that employees can claim in a month or a spending cap on personal office supplies. Limits make it easy for your employees to make wise spending decisions, as opposed to disrupting your cash flow because, for instance, they purchased expensive tickets to a sporting event to impress a client. You should also set rules that guide how long employees have to submit reimbursements and how soon they will be approved. Next, create dynamic forms. From contracts to purchasing requests, forms are a practical tool that allow you to achieve your goals, particularly in reimbursement. When your employees have access to an expense report form that is flexible enough to handle a variety of financial situations and easy to fill out, it will encourage them to use it. If you don't want to waste time making rigid forms in Microsoft Word or Excel, you can use an online form builder like Jotform, which allows you to customize the form and connect it to your accounting programs. Now it's time to set up your reimbursement approval process. Your approval process is the workflow that maps out the journey expense forms take in your company. It usually starts when an employee turns in a reimbursement form. Then the form goes to a manager for approval. Depending on the request, it may also have to go through another round of approvals with someone in the finance department. The fastest approval processes are automated by software. which is programmed to flag unusual amounts and instantly notify all stakeholders of approvals or denials. With these tools, approvers can review forms in a few clicks, allowing the department to oversee outgoing funds in real time. Without automation, employees waste time looking for approvers in the office, delaying their reimbursements and frustrating the accounting department. And finally, teach the policy to your workers. One way to introduce a new or modified expense reimbursement policy is to set up a meeting to go over the entire policy with employees. No matter how you introduce the rules, keep it positive. Emphasize how the policy will help employees and managers work together and avoid frustration. If applicable, then publicly thank employees for their input in the policy writing process. This gesture will make employees feel appreciated and give them a sense of ownership over the rules, which encourages them to learn the policy or at least check it when they need to. Expenses can be much easier with a unified platform, which is exactly what Jotform offers. They have several easy-to-use customizable reimbursement templates. You can even add multiple widgets like an e-signature widget to these forms to increase their usability. There are also plenty of integrations available to connect your forms to other platforms. After you've built your forms, you can create the perfect expense approval workflow with the drag and drop interface on Jotform approvals. Okay, let's review. There are 6 main steps to create an expense reimbursement policy for your company. First, create expense categories. Then ask employees for input on the policy. Set the rules for the policy and create dynamic forms for requesting reimbursement. Then, set up a reimbursement approval process and teach the policy to your employees. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope it was helpful. I'm Raid here with Jotform. Have a great day.